last but not the least. And I was actually debating whether I should have Rabbi Daniel Bogard go first, because Judaism came before both of our faiths. From congregation Anshai Emeth, one of my closest Jewish friends, I learned a whole lot about modern Jewry from him, someone who I found out respects the dignity of all human beings. And I feel so much at home. I've visited his home a number of occasions. I have felt extremely comfortable visiting him and his wife, who also happens to be a rabbi. And one sentence which he told me after the California shootings, and I love him, I really do. I loved him before also, is he said, Camille, I will walk with you, and that's when we were talking about myself and Jim Powell, we were talking about visiting Mayor Ardis. He said, I will walk with you through any door you want me to walk with you. He's a wonderful human being. Please give him the applause he rightfully deserves.
So in rabbinical school, I have a vivid memory of a professor telling me the last place you want to be standing is between a crowd and food. So I'm going to try to do this, as we say in Judaism, al regel echat, on one foot. We have this tradition. It calls back to one of the oldest stories, the most famous stories in the Talmud, where a prospective convert goes between one of the great rabbis, Rabbi Hillel, and he says, with some chutzpah, if you can teach me everything about Judaism while standing on one foot, I'll convert. So Hillel thinks for a moment and presumably lifts up one leg and looks back at him and he says, that which is hateful to you, do not do to the other. The rest is commentary. It's the core message. It is the core message of the Jewish people. 36 times in the Torah, more than any other commandment, more than anything dealing with the Sabbath or with dietary laws or with any of the sexual laws, more than anything else, we are told some variation on do not oppress the orphan, the stranger, or the widow, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. It's an ethical imperative. It's an imperative that's the opposite of how humans normally act. We're really good at passing our traumas on from one generation to another. One generation's victim is the next abuser. One generation's immigrant is the next generation's nativist. It's the way the world is. But religion at its best calls us not to accept the world as it is, but as it ought to be. 36 times we're told not to oppress because of what happened to us. That the evils of our own past, the traumas we have experienced, obligate us to make sure that they do not happen again in this generation to us or to anyone else. And the Jewish people know what it is like to be the stranger. 70 years ago, just 70 years ago, 6 million Jews were killed at the hands of Europe. But even in this country, we know what it's like to be an immigrant who's suspected of not being American enough. We've experienced this evil. And make no bones about it, the otherization that is being directed against Muslim Americans is evil. Jews feel it in our kishkas, in our guts. We recognize this rhetoric all too well. And we know that language of rhetoric inevitably leads to something worse. It's not acceptable. It's not acceptable when one of the major nominees of a major party in our country suggests a religious test for entry into the United States of America. It's not acceptable. It's not acceptable. It's not acceptable as policy. It's not acceptable as discourse. It goes against the deepest of our values. It goes against our values as religions, and it goes against our values as Americans. And so I'm calling all of us to say no to this hate, to begin to push back against this rhetoric of otherization that's being directed against Muslim Americans. When we sit idly by, when we allow hate to be spread, when we allow evil to be normalized, it stops looking like evil. It's not okay. It's not okay for politicians to do it. It's not okay for us to do it, or our friends, or our family members, or our co-workers. And so I pledge today, and I hope all of us can take this upon ourselves. I pledge that I won't stand idly by, that I won't just politely ignore those people who tell tales of fear and otherization about our Muslim American brothers and sisters. Jews know all too well, sticks and stones may break our bones, and words lead to violence. Muslims and Jews have a long history of tolerance, of coexistence, of learning from each other. For the last 70 years or so, we've often been divided by political events in the Middle East. But we're not in the Middle East. We're in the Midwest. And here in the Midwest, and here in the United States, I say to you, I say to my Muslim brothers and sisters, that we, the Jewish community of the United States, and even more so, the Jewish community here in central Illinois, we stand with you. We stand with you during this time of rising darkness. We will fight evil with light. We will fight hate with goodness. We will show that real religious values, Jewish, Muslim, Christian, real American values, are values of tolerance, of acceptance, and of peace. I say shalom aleichem, peace be upon you. I say assalamu alaikum. May we all be blessed, and may the Holy One shelter us, all of us, beneath a canopy of peace. Thank you.